Does anyone like having a 50% win rate? No, of course not. So how do we improve this? Well, today is your lucky day because Coach Eeks in the next 10 or so minutes is about to hit you with some of the most important challenger tips that will help you take your 50% win rate and turn it into an 80-90%er. And if you do want to see more in-depth guides just like this one, let us know by smashing that like button, and any questions on any of the tips we mentioned, make sure to leave your questions and thoughts in the comment section. And all of these tips, you can take them and apply them to any role and even champion you're playing. Top lane, bot lane, mid lane, it doesn't matter. So how do we go about playing level 1 in a Zed versus Victor matchup? Well, as a melee short range champion, Zed is never going to be able to hit level 2 first against a champion with higher range. So during the first wave, we are trying to do two major things. We want to, number 1, poke Victor with Q, and number 2, we want to last hit as much as possible. But sometimes it will be risky to poke the Victor with Q, and it will be too risky to run up and last hit. So we have to be able to envision the damage we might take from Victor if we make a decision. This is crucial to understand because your HP is by far the most important detail in any lane. So preserving it, especially when you are weaker than your opponent, is a must. Oh my god, he missed a Q. Hey, it happens. We're not going to land every skill shot, but I want to highlight a couple of more details here. Does Zed miss anything for going for this Q? Because the blue minions are still really healthy, so no. And Victor is not in range to retaliate because Zed instantly turns away. So Zed might have missed his shuriken, but it's not at the cost of anything else. This is essentially what determines whether a play is good or rise tier. Now, until Zed's Q is back off cooldown, he stays out of range of the posturing Victor, and then his Q comes back up. So how many of us would use our Q here? I think a lot of us would. Don't kid yourself. But what would be the cost of trying to Q the Victor? For sure, you might hit the Q, but we miss out on a more important 21 gold from this blue melee minion, because our Q would be off cooldown and running up to auto attack the CS, where you need to get a checkup because that would cost you a bunch of HP. So Korean Zed holds on to his Q, and because Victor then moves to the bottom side of this mid lane, Zed moves to the top side. This is what I like to call the axis of the lane. So it's almost as if you and your opponent are operating around a circle. If they move down, you move up, and vice versa. This positioning creates the biggest amount of space between Zed and Victor, meaning that Zed can Q this minion without any cost. Now, after queuing, Zed positions well away from Victor's cooldown and range advantage, and when his Q comes back up, it seems just natural to run up and last hit this minion. But one thing has changed. The first wave has been thinned out by time and last hitting from Victor. So if Victor was to trade with Zed, the red minions wouldn't do enough damage to help Zed in that trade, which is why Victor correctly plays beyond the wave and says to Zed, "Hey bro, if you Q that minion, I'm going to take 200 of your HP." And Zed replies, "What the? Alright, that's not worth, but I'm not just going to let you run at me for free, so here's a Q." And Victor does the same thing, and that trade was definitely worth for Zed until he randomly walks back into range of Victor's auto attack. This movement would only make sense if he was scared of missing minion experience, but no blue minion is close to dying. Now, because Zed's Q is shorter than Victor's, Zed knows that he has a small window for a free shuriken, in the sense that Victor cannot retaliate because he would get heavily outdamaged, and Zed probably won't miss any minions for it. So he goes for it. A whisker away. Now the momentum is back with Victor. He has the cooldown advantage and is about to hit level 2, so Zed respects it once again by standing out of range. But now he has a choice. Do I move up into range of Victor to last hit this minion? Well, seeing as Zed still has 3 health potions left and 21 gold is a solid amount of gold, greeting for this is 100% worth the HP Zed loses. And we will see this back and forth continue. But one awesome tip for all of you, when you are reviewing your own games or someone else's, try to analyze the play of your opponent as well. So something Victor does really well here throughout the early lane that lots of others wouldn't do, he is pressuring Zed for every CS because he knows Zed is really not a threat until level 3. So when this blue melee minion moves towards Zed, Victor knows that Zed wants that 21 gold. Now Zed might get that 21 gold, but if you are Victor, you have to try to create a cost being the stronger champion. So Victor death rays towards Zed as he is about to go for that last hit. Now even though it just misses, the intention here is the main idea, and that's the sole reason. Zed only has 2 CS. If this was a gold game, heck, even a diamond master game, I've seen some whack things, Zed probably has the same CS as Victor and is full HP. Now the lane continues, Zed respecting Victor, and when this wave crashes, we are still keeping in mind preserve HP. Do not feel pressured if you only have 5 CS after 2 waves. That is how these early lanes should go. So after queuing to last hit 2 minions, Zed plays behind his tower and doesn't even move up to last hit this one. But why? Feel free to pause the video, but it's the same theme we looked at earlier. There is too big bigger cost if Zed goes up to auto attack. Victor has both his Q and E, and Zed would get railed in terms of his HP. This is why Victor preemptively death rays, but we also have to count the cooldowns of our opponent. Doing this will enable us to time our own abilities optimally. So Victor keeps pressuring Zed for all the CS and then he Qs. So hang on, that Victor's E and Q are down. Well, unless he's a master of the dark arts, he is now just relying on auto attacks to damage Zed. And Zed on the other hand has both his cooldowns. So Korean Zed engages and combos, and Victor can only auto attack back. Can you imagine how much riskier this would have been if Victor has both abilities ready to use? Now Zed, because he just used both his cooldowns, has to understand that Victor is really the one with the momentum again. So this cooldown momentum, let's call it, is very important to understand. When you don't have it, just like Zed, you are relaxing, preserving the HP. But when a minion approaches that is last hittable, you then ask yourself, can I last hit this without copying it? Well, it's really up to Victor. He knows Zed will want this cannon minion in particular, and also this melee minion, so he death rays. That's one cooldown, so now it's safer for Zed to move up. Unfortunately though, he mistimes his Q, but Victor can only Q him at this point. Now if we go back just a little bit, Victor should save his cooldowns until his blue cannon minion is super low. Zed is still a little too far back when he death rays, so there's a bigger chance of him missing it. So if he saved it just a little bit longer, there is more pressure on Zed for that cannon. Now we reach the point in the lane where Zed is going to kill Victor. So keep in mind that Victor E'd earlier, and that is around a 10-second cooldown. And when Zed pushes for the cannon, Victor uses his Q. So that's his other ability used, and lots of Victor players will put 2 points into E, so he has no W at this point. This means that when Zed Ws and Es, both the cannon and Victor, which is very nice, he knows he has all the cooldown momentum to then land his Qs. Victor, as a result, gets chunked, and for whatever reason stands on top of Zed's shadow, despite having no E and no Q. And keep in mind, this is a challenger mid laner. If Victor makes a mistake like this, I know it's happening in a bunch of other games. So Zed Ws to his shadow to gap close to Victor, but just one tip here when you are looking to kill your opponent. Use your ignite as part of your combo, because in this situation, Zed ignites Victor before he really does anything. So this gives Victor a little bit of hope. He could flash away knowing Zed has no cooldowns and actually survive. And it might seem like a small detail, but if you treat these small details like they are massive mistakes, that's what makes these challenger players challenger. Now after clearing these minions, Zed is going to run behind his tower and recall. This is also an important point because getting your recall interrupted is pretty annoying. The enemy champion is like that fly that you cannot get away from. So always be more safe than more sorry in terms of where you start your recall. That time is very big. Now Victor teleports back to lane. This is why Zed cannot stay for another wave. And Zed buys his serrated dirk, says goodbye to the shopkeeper, and what happens in the next minute or so is arguably the most crucial point of this video. So Zed returns to lane and we can see that the blue minions outnumber the red minions. So if no one does anything, the lane will push towards Zed. This is ideal because it gives Zed more space to chase the Victor down, and Victor will be further away from his own safety. In other words, his tower. So Zed really doesn't want to hit the wave here too much, but there is also another very important detail, and we've already talked about it. What do you think Victor wants to do here? What does he want to achieve? Well, he wants this red melee minion. So Zed, knowing this, runs directly at the Victor until he is in range and bops him with a full electrocute combo. Next time this happens, Victor is probably dead. So one great tip to take with you is to use your cooldowns and combos to protect your minions, and you can do this on any champion. Now Zed is fully on cooldown here, so the momentum does swing back to Victor, and Victor decides, alright, I now want to hard push this wave, otherwise I will be playing the lane really close to Zed's tower, and I'll probably die. And Zed, for whatever reason, is like, yeah, no worries bro, I'll make it easy for you. But what do you think Zed can do here to make Victor's life hell? Well, instead of letting these blue minions crash into his tower, he could draw the attention or aggro of the blue minions and walk towards this alleyway. This would lead the blue minions away from his tower, and all he has to do is wait for his next wave to cross his tower's range. This would then mean the waves would collide outside of Zed's tower aggro, and the lane would be played in an amazing position for him. So always look out for this trick in your games, but do be careful, because if the enemy champion follows this wave in and has their cooldowns, you might lose too much HP for it. Now Zed last hits these minions best he can, and can you see how he is still down 13 CS? This is just how a melee range matchup goes when both sides play their champions and roles close to optimal level. Now Victor clips Zed with a death ray. So Victor no E. That's what Zed is thinking here, so he runs beyond the wave, and he might have missed Victor with this combo, but it is the right idea. He has the cooldown momentum, so he looks to use it. But it's true, because of this combo, Zed has lost that momentum, so until his abilities come back up, he is preserving the HP and last hitting where he can. Now when his W is close to coming back off cooldown, very important tip here. Notice how he doesn't use his E or Q just before. He wants to use these skills kills with his W as soon as possible, so be aware of your own cooldown spikes. A combo with 3 abilities is a lot deadlier than a combo with only 2. And what else can you notice in this picture? Just look at Victor. He just used his Q, hence the shield he has. So Zed is thinking, this Victor just used his Q, and I have all my abilities ready in 3 seconds? So what does Zed do? Boom. And at this point, the lane, in my opinion, should be completely GG, over, finito, FF. But Zed is about to commit a cardinal sin, and this is one of those ingredients that you might not really care about, but it makes up that challenger recipe. Without it, they are not challenger. So let me ask you, what do you think Victor is going to think about doing after getting chunked like that? Well, he might be spam pinging his jungler to come mid, but he has to think about recalling here because the lane is just way too dangerous. But the question here is, Victor might know if he's recalling, but does Zed know? That's the key, because this decision Victor makes, if he recalls or if he stays, determines how Zed should manage this wave. So Zed has to scout Victor here, and we ain't talking about the world champion mid laner. He has to get that information before doing anything to the minions. If Victor recalls, he hard pushes, because Victor would miss this entire wave. But if Victor stays, how does Zed make it as difficult as possible for Victor to play the game? He just slow pushes, or last hits exactly. So what ends up happening? Well, Zed hard pushes and Victor stays. So Zed is essentially giving Victor free minions because he has 0 kill pressure without his W and ultimate. And look, the Zed has nothing to do, just waddles around like he's completely lost, and Victor gets some nice poke on the Zed. And now the Victor's jungler Rek'Sai is having a sniff at the mid lane, so Zed has to play really safe. This should never have been the case after Zed chunked the Victor to like 200-300 HP. So always try to find out, guys, after you chunk the enemy mid laner, are they recalling, are they staying? Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want more analyses just like this one, head on over to the GameLeap website, linked in the description and comment section. I'm the best coach in the world, and you can get access to all those exclusive videos I make. And so you don't miss any of our future uploads, hit that subscribe button. And until tomorrow's upload, this has been Coach Cheeks.